Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to attempt to say it in Welsh because that would be a bit of a disaster, I'm afraid. But it's really great to be with you all, albeit virtually. We'd love to be there with you to actually meet, but this is a start, and let's keep in contact after this. So what are we going to cover today? Basically, going to give you an overview of what UN procurement actually is, and this will be relevant for UN procurement in all the different centres. So that we will start with the general points that are valid right across the UN system. We then talk about how you can access it. Then we have a quick overview of procurement in Geneva, New York and Copenhagen, and we finish up with some contact points for you and Q&A session. So the first thing to remember is that United Nations is not just one organisation when we're talking about procurement. The UN talks about itself as a family, and each member of that family has its own procedures, its own procurement, its own team, its own requirements. So remember that it's one family, but many customers, and you will have to target those individually as you progress through the system. So why should you be looking at this? Well, as Paul mentioned at the beginning, it's worth a lot of money. $19.9 billion were spent in 2019. Roughly 50% on services, 50% on goods, and the UK sits at the moment in 11th position. There's very little actually between the sort of 7th to the 11th position, as you will see. It's worth noting, however, that 62% of the budget is spent in developing countries. Clearly, the UN, one of its remits is to help development. So where it's possible, they will spend their money in the developing countries to improve the economy in those countries, and also to cut down on the logistics of shipping a product, say from the UK into Africa somewhere, if that product can be purchased locally. So there you have the league table showing you the top suppliers into the UN, and you can see there from the UK side what we are selling. It should be no surprise to see the USA on the top, UN headquarters based there in New York. India, you might be surprised a little bit, but that is mainly on the medical pharmaceutical side. Yemen is because of all the operations that are running in Yemen at the moment. And similarly, as you go down, Switzerland, another headquarters office, Belgium, France, Denmark, a lot of medical procurement going on there. But we will tell you where to actually get into the detail of these statistics just a little bit later. So why should you sell into the UN, apart from the fact that it has this very handsome budget to spend? Well, you'll be glad to see that English is the working language, payment is guaranteed, and I think especially at the moment that's pretty good news. If you deliver your side of the deal, the payment is guaranteed within 30 days. Also, the UK has got a great reputation with the UN, and something that surprises a lot of people is that the order size is suitable for SMEs. This is by no means an area of business which is only for the very big companies. For sure, there will be certain products like vaccines, like some of the pharmaceutical products, which will always go to the manufacturers, very big companies. But there's a lot of other business for SME. However, there's always a but. It's probably not a quick win. You do need to put some effort into this, time and effort. And the UN has its own procedures, so it's perhaps not like other buyers that you may have come across. And you also need to remember that you will be in competition with companies right across the globe. This is not just competing with other companies in Wales or in the UK. So this is the website, and I promise you, if you're interested in UN procurement, this is going to be your new favourite website. It's the UN Global Marketplace. You will get a lot of information here. And if you're looking at this for the first time and you haven't actually registered as a potential supplier, this is where you need to go. You've got a registration procedure there, you've got business opportunities, so those are the tenders and so on which are publicly available will be posted here. But please remember, not everything is posted on this website. There are other opportunities that you may well be alerted to. So please take time to have a look there. The registration for anyone who has not yet done it is an essential first step. It's not going to take you very long. Go to the UN Global Marketplace, register your company at the first level, so that if there's an opportunity, you are then ready to bid. The thing is, if you don't register, you're never going to do any business. I'm afraid, on the other hand, registration does not mean that business suddenly starts to drop through your letterbox, but you've got to be in it to have a chance of winning it. The UN Global Marketplace will be your gateway to 31 UN organisations, agencies and programmes. So by being registered there, your details can be picked up by any one of those organisations who is looking for a particular category of product or service. I use the term product quite loosely there, it's product and service. So if you've registered and you've bid, what are the selection criteria? How will you find out, or how will the UN decide who they're going to place the business with? Very important is to remember the appropriate quality. Always think when the UN has asked for something which may look a little bit strange to you as a supplier, it may seem perhaps too simple. Think of where it's going to, the destination, the environment in that destination, the skill level in that destination, and very importantly, the availability of spare parts. If a product does need spare parts regularly, then something will need to be set up in that location in order for the product to be suitable. Of course, they're looking for value for money. They will look for good after-sales service where appropriate. And again, very important is delivery. They need reliable deliveries. Quite often what you might be delivering will be part of a larger consignment. So it's important that if you've been given a delivery date, you stick to it so that that consignment is delivered on time. So that's just one photograph of one location, a refugee camp, just to remind you of the importance of offering the appropriate quality. Basically give them what they're asking for. In that kind of environment, power supply is very erratic, if it even exists. Clearly, there's very little water, and there's definitely nowhere that you can go to buy a battery if you need one. So what does the UN actually buy in terms of goods and services? Well, there's a list on the screen at the moment. I think that covers most of you listening in on this webinar. You'll be able to fit in one of those categories. Those are the most commonly procured categories. By no means is that the definitive list of what they purchase. What we need to remember is that the UN is a responsive organisation. When there's a particular situation in a country, if it's a crisis or a disease running through a country, then they will need the products and services to respond to that particular event. So it's a very changeable shopping list, I'm afraid, but that will give you some idea of the typical products. To help you, if you are a supplier of goods, there are two areas that you can go and have a look at to see the specifications. One is the UNICEF directory and the other one is the International Federation of the Red Cross directory. You'll have to navigate your way to the procurement portal, but very, very simple to find. The value of these catalogues is that they give you an overview of the most commonly procured products. They will tell you about the actual specification for that product. They will even give details of the size of the product in terms of volume, and those measurements are actually really important when it comes to logistics. The products have to be moved from one place to another, where the logistics service is not what we've got here in the UK or in Europe. So they will probably want smaller packaging in some cases than what you are used to for other deliveries. In some cases, the specifications will even give you an indication of cost or expected cost. So you will know very quickly if you are in the right arena with your particular product. So apart from individual orders, the UN also works increasingly with something called frame agreements or long-term agreements. They decide the products and services for which they will issue a frame agreement. And the value of these, of course, is that means, although the process for signing a frame agreement can be quite long, later they will save a lot of time because they will not have to go out to tender every time they need that particular product or service. So shorter lead time, improved quality control. However, there are no minimum or maximum quantities guaranteed. There's an indication in the agreement of what they might expect to need in a year or in a 2-year period, but there's absolutely no guarantee, nor is the agreement exclusive to a single supplier. So you will, even within the long-term agreement, have to compete with other companies to actually get a good share of the business. The best thing about the long-term agreement, I would say, is the point there. It's available to other members of the UN family. So let's say, for the sake of argument, you have an agreement with the High Commission for Refugees, UNHCR. Someone from UNICEF or from WHO or from UNPD, they may have a similar requirement, and rather than go through their own process to issue a tender, they can go to the long-term agreement and place business with you as well. So you can end up getting business that you didn't necessarily expect at the outset. So now let's move on to the UN centres. I'm going to talk to you very briefly about Geneva. So you've got a photograph there in the middle. That's actually just the UN headquarters here in Geneva. And around that, I've highlighted some of the organisations. There are many more than that. But the main ones in terms of procurement relevant to this particular webinar, probably UNHCR, the World Health Organization, WHO, the United Nations Office at Geneva, and the International Labour Organization. For services, if, for example, you're providing executive training or corporate training, well, that would be relevant to almost any organisation in Geneva. So, what do they actually buy? Again, just to give you a general idea, it's up there on the screen and you are going to receive copies of this presentation afterwards, so I'm not going to read through it all. But World Health Organization, as you would expect, is purchasing healthcare and medical pharmaceutical supplies. What might surprise you is that they are not the biggest purchaser of health-related items. The WHO, although it does spend a lot of money, we're talking about millions, their main role is actually on policy and laying down the specifications and regulations around procurement of health products. So you will find UNICEF, for example, is a much bigger purchaser of healthcare items than the World Health Organization is. The High Commission for Refugees has a little bit of healthcare, but their main remit is providing shelter and security for the refugees. So providing everything that you would need in a camp, water and sanitation supplies, the actual shelter itself, and the domestic supplies like cooking pots and so on. I think what we need to remember that the UN does come together as a family when it's in the field, when it's out dealing with an event or a crisis. So each organisation within the family will concentrate on what it specialises in. So for example, if we think of a refugee camp, the UNHCR will look after providing the actual shelter and domestic supplies. The health needs of those camps will be met by the World Health Organization, by UNICEF, by a whole host of NGOs. So it's not everybody buying the same thing every time. Also in Geneva, if you are looking at procurement in Geneva in the UN, it's worth looking at the two international Red Cross organizations. They've got many similar requirements. These two organizations are completely separate. Well, I shouldn't say completely separate, but in terms of procurement, they are separate from each other. The Federation, International Federation, deals with procurement in case of natural disaster, whereas the International Committee focuses on procurement in times of conflict. So that can have some influence on the, or some impact rather, on the types of procurement that they actually carry out. Then the UN agencies in Rome, which we look after from here in Geneva, we have basically, they are concentrating on food and on agriculture. Two organizations with significant procurement needs are the World Food Programme, which is the second largest organization in terms of procurement within the UN family. The World Food Programme, if you remember, what they are doing is providing food to people who are starving and everything that goes around providing that food. So they do have significant needs in terms of logistics and in terms of warehousing, for example. However, most of the food that they purchase will be purchased locally, close to where it's needed. The Food and Agriculture Organization, on the other hand, is not there to provide food, but is there to provide people with the skills and knowledge and equipment to grow their own food and develop their own agriculture. So you've got WFP and FAO, both in Rome. IFAD, also there in Rome, is actually a funding organisation rather than a procurement organisation. So I'm not going to touch on it today. Now handing over to my colleague Nathaniel for the New York presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Eleanor. My name is Nathaniel Sears, and I'm the Vice Consul for UN Procurement in New York. I work alongside my colleague Chika McGarry, who will also be on this presentation. So today we'll be talking about both the UN Procurement Division as well as the UN Development Program. So kicking off with UN Procurement Division. The UN Procurement Division is the third largest purchaser amongst all UN agencies in 2019. So there's a fair amount of spending, and being based out of New York, they procure for the Secretariat, which is based in New York, as well as all of the respective missions around the world, and also different departments like the Office of Information and Communication Technologies, Facility Management Services, which is again for those UN headquarters around the world. So diving a bit deeper into the numbers, we can look at some of the key areas of spending for the UN Procurement Division. Again, this isn't an exhaustive list, but this is the largest commodity purchases. And that's, again, of goods and services. So for instance, air transportation, the UN isn't purchasing, helicopters or planes. They're sort of leasing out helicopters and they're paying for air charter services. So if you're in either of those spaces, and there's, again, a large chunk of potential spend for you. But of course, other major areas, as you can see, are things like ICT, fuel, food and catering, building and construction, travel, going down the list. The UK sort of overperforms, as you saw Eleanor's presentation at the beginning. We're sort of the 11th largest purchaser by country, but on this, within UN Procurement Division, we're 6th. I think it speaks to a lot of the strengths of the UK and in their alignment with the needs of UN Procurement Division, especially around issues like air charter and and security services, but I'll jump over to the next chart so you can see some of the key areas specifically, again, for UK companies, and these are the 2019 numbers, which are just updated somewhat recently. Again, this is just the top 5, so there's plenty of other areas of spending. We have engineering and research services, again, as I mentioned, IT services, food and beverage, which to a large extent falls down to, as Eleanor said, probably a small number of companies, just because they're typically purchasing ration packs within Procurement Division. So this isn't going to be your smaller scale food services. If they can be bought in country, they likely will be. But sort of larger ration packs and things that are needed within the missions, there should be, there's opportunities there. Public order and security services, as I said, the UK is sort of known as a leader in that sector as well. And then you have the sort of editorial design and graphic services, which make up, a fair amount of consultancy opportunities and other service opportunities. There are sometimes smaller contracts that are, easier to win for smaller businesses as well. So there's definitely opportunities for companies at all sizes. And I'll hand over to Chika to talk through the organization and the support we provide from New York.
Thank you. So this chart shows you, how the agency is structured. As you can see, they are divided into categories. So if your sector falls into one of these sectors, then that's a really good sign. We've got relationships with each of the teams here so that we can make introductions when necessary. And how can you engage with UNPD? So first of all, please get in touch with us for an introduction by either email, or we're happy to jump on a call as well if that's easier for you. If you could also send us a one-pager about your company and what you provide, that would also be really helpful. And then I can share the information with my contacts within UNPD. And if they're interested in talking to you further, I can set up a meeting with them. If you have won a contract with the UN before, please also let us know. As Eleanor said, it's becoming more and more common for them to share contracts among agencies. So UNPD might decide to just piggyback on other agencies' contracts that you already have. You can also reach out to each team directly if you wanted to. There's a website that has all their contact details that's linked here. I would also recommend that you get alerts on UNGM, otherwise it's quite easy to miss opportunities because it gets updated every day. And I would also recommend that you check the annual statistical reports to see which agency has bought similar goods or services to what you currently provide. This is a really good source of information that tells you a lot about each agency and their focus areas. So it's worth checking. And I'm going to hand over to Nathaniel again.
Great, thanks, Chika. Sure. So before I jump into UN Development Program, I forgot to give my shout out that I usually give at the beginning. Oh, it seems like the presentation went.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Is there any? If you can pull that up real quick, well, I'll just give my quick spiel. Or if Eleanor was the one that put it on, if you'd be able to maybe put it back up again. Yeah. But while I'm doing that, I can quickly give a shout out to, we'll be running a question and answer session, obviously, at the end of this. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat. You'll be able to raise your hand and speak with us. But if there's anything that you worry you might forget, or if there's something that comes up that's topically relevant to one of the slides, then we're obviously, I'll go through and read those, so you don't have to, kick yourself at the end forgetting what question you might have asked. And thank you for pulling that up again. Sorry, everyone, as we quickly slide through. Ooh, great, thank you very much. I'll take control of it again. So diving right in, we have again, our second organization is the UN Development Program. You can see their main focus areas there around democratic governance and peace building, climate disaster recovery, health, sustainable development. A lot of the support that's provided is for technical assistance for developing countries. So you'll see on the next couple of slides, both within their major areas of spend as well as UK specific spend. A lot of that is quite heavy on the services side. Again, it's very much a global organization, as the UN is generally. So while we have the UN Development Program headquarters in New York, where they have basically their policy specialists, a lot of their specialized procurement is done out of Copenhagen. So luckily we have Joanne in Copenhagen, who is also there to support. So we work quite closely between our New York, Copenhagen, and Geneva colleagues. So do rest assured, if there's an opportunity sort of between teams, we're constantly sharing information back and forth and highlighting companies that might have potential opportunities with our agencies in our respective parts of the world. And then, of course, you can see the Kuala Lumpur is where the long-term agreements and high-volume contracts are managed. Of course, we still liaise through the New York office, but we support on those as well. Now, jumping over to the major areas of spend, you'll see slightly over 2 billion in spending last year. So again, significant number or percentage or amount of opportunities, I should say, for UK and Welsh companies. And looking again at this, as I mentioned before, a lot of this is around services. And you'll also see, as Eleanor mentioned before, around sort of pharmaceuticals and vaccines, a lot of that is likely going to India, but there's still, I'm sure, opportunities within that broader category for UK companies. But again, management and administrative services, engineering and research services, building and management or maintenance services. So a lot of service provided for in-country support to developing countries, but also for their local teams based in country. And going to our next slide, you can see, again, the UK specific procurement values. Again, largely going along the list that was provided before, very heavy on services, with goods being the pharmaceuticals, contraceptives, and vaccines, and also motor vehicles and parts. But again, we can have broader conversations. I don't want to just bore you with numbers, so I'll now hand over again to Chika to talk through how we engage the UN Development Program as well as the support we provide.
Yeah, so UNDP has over 100 country offices across the world, and potentially each office is your business partner. And you can check the transparency portal to see which offices you should focus on, because it gives you useful data on what kind of ongoing projects they have and how much budget they're spending on those projects. As I mentioned earlier, please send us a one-pager and I will share that with our contacts within UNDP. And all of the UNDP tenders are posted on UNGM, so please remember to register on there. How we support UK companies in New York. So one, we can make introductions to UN procurement officers depending on the UN's availability and demand. If you have a product that is exactly what the UN's looking for, it's quite likely that they want to have a meeting with you. If not, I can at least share information about your company with them so that they are aware. Pre-COVID, we've attended bid openings on behalf of companies as well. So if you don't have a presence in the US, for example, we can represent you at a bid opening meeting and then report back on who the competitors were and what their prices looked like. But now, obviously, they're not conducting any physical bid openings. But once they start doing it again, we can attend these bid openings for you. We also host trade missions every 2 years. So we did one in November in 2019. Where we invited 13 companies from the UK so that they can meet with UN procurement officers and have one-to-one meetings with them. Several UN agencies attended our trade mission, so each of them gave us presentations on what kind of upcoming opportunities there are and on how to get involved in the UN procurement process. And I'm hoping that we can do another one towards the end of this year, but we'll see. We also bring UN delegates to events and exhibitions in the UK. The last one we went to was the security and policing event last year. We took high-level UN officials to the event to create an opportunity to meet with UK companies in person. So please let me know if you're attending any exhibition that would be worth flagging to the UN. And post-COVID, we're working to replicate our events virtually, and one of the examples is the UN procurement webinars that we hosted in the last couple of months together with UNPD. We've done 3 webinars so far for the cybersecurity sector, security sector, and the healthcare sector. So if you're interested in either of the webinars, please get in touch so that I can share the slides with you. And I think that's all for New York. I'm handing now over to Joanne.
Thank you, Chika. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Joanne. So I'm based at the British Embassy in Copenhagen with responsibilities for aid-funded business and the food and drink sector. So I'm just going to provide you with a very brief overview of the UN agencies in Copenhagen. As you can see from the picture, the building that looks like it has fingers is called the UN City. So that's home to 11 agencies in Copenhagen, and 4 of those agencies have a procurement function from Copenhagen. So that is UNICEF. They have their supply division, so their warehousing facilities in Copenhagen. It's not next to, well, it's not in the UN City, but it's very close by. We also have UNFPA, UNDP, which was mentioned by Chika and Nathaniel, and UNOPS. So UNDP there was covered briefly by my colleagues in New York, so I'd just like to focus on the Copenhagen procurement side. So Copenhagen has a specialist procurement unit which is focused around 3 key categories, and this was set up because they wanted to consolidate global volumes and try and standardise some categories through long-term agreements, which was also covered in the presentation. So they have experts in 3 areas. So one of those areas is health, and that's ensuring supply of medicines and health products. They also have craidd, which is looking at crisis response, energy and the environment. And that can be a wide range of products and services. And then they have the elections. So that's supporting elections in country globally around strategic guidance, operational support in setting elections up. It can be anything from ID cards to ballot cards to the ballot boxes to pens and paper. So it's everything to do with setting up an election in country. So the next agency is UNICEF. So they're looking at the protection of children's rights. So they have a focus on healthcare, education and safe water. They're present in 190 countries worldwide, and in 2019 they had a global spend of $3.83 billion, so a very significant amount. Of that, UK wins was $83 million. They've got the largest humanitarian warehouse in the world in Copenhagen. It's around 20,000 square meters, fully automated, and here they're packing around 50 different kits and emergency response items. So the top procurement categories in UNICEF are vaccines, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, and that's also looking at cold chain and logistics, water and sanitation, Nutrition, so that's looking at nutritional products for babies and children. That could be therapeutic milk or other nutritional products. Educational supplies, so that's to do with like the school in a box program. So it's like putting a classroom ready items for children. And then there's also services and project support office. So that's things that are not connected to their main category. So that can be anything from mosquito nets. It can also be logistics services and insurance, and that's connected to the warehouse. Eleanor mentioned as well that they have a supply catalogue. So here you can actually go onto the supply catalogue and look at the different categories that were mentioned and look at the different items that they're procuring. They also have tender calendars. So each business segment, for example, water and sanitation, would publish a tender calendar for the next 12 months. And that you can see the example on the presentation. So that's one for the wash, and it's got actually items on there, and then which quarter they're likely to purchase or put out a tender for this product. If you want more information on the specific products, you can actually take the material number and go onto the supply catalogue and find the specifications, and in most cases the price that's being paid. So it's a very good indication to find out if your company is actually can actually supply the UNICEF. If you're interested in supplying any of the items or bidding for any of the items, there is normally a website that you can go on and an email address so you can send your contact details. So the next agency is the UNFPA, which is the United Nations Population Fund. So they're present in 150 countries worldwide. So their focus is looking at contraception, safe pregnancy and childbirth. In 2019, they had a spend of $404 million and UK wins of $15 million. So their top procurement categories are contraception, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, health kits and services. So on the health kit side, they would often all partner with other agencies such as UNICEF. They also have a lot of other goods and services, for example, special vehicles. So this could be a mobile health clinic, telecom equipment, IT, office equipment and hospital equipment, and printing and publications. So the next agency, the final agency for Copenhagen, is the UN Office for Project Services. So that's really the operational arm of the UN. So they're implementing projects for other UN institutions, governments and other partners. They're independent and they're self-financing since '95. In 2019, they had a spend of $1.1 billion and UK wins of that was $72 million. Again, they have a wide range of products and services and quite an equal divide between the two. So on the goods side, there's pharmaceuticals, vaccines, infrastructure, products and services, motor vehicles, can be lab and testing equipment and ICT equipment. Also due to COVID, they've also started to purchase a lot of health related equipment in addition. They have also an online catalogue called UN Web Buy, which you can go on and look at the different categories of products that I mentioned above. In 2016, UNOPS launched their innovation portal, which is called the Possibilities Portal, because they're very interested to look at new innovations and new ideas from business. So it's really a place for SMEs to register and pitch their unique solutions. So they launched it also to try and engage more with the private sector and identify innovative solutions that actually meet their procurement needs. So it's a portal, and you can see the web link is actually on the slide. It's a free of charge service. It's quite a simple process. You just need to submit your solution. And then it will be evaluated by a panel, and they're looking at following criteria such as its uniqueness, the relevant and the potential value. And then if you're successful, you'll be invited in for further discussions. So I would suggest, if you have any innovative solutions and ideas, to post them on this portal. At the moment, there's no specific themes based on procurement needs, so the scope is quite wide. Thank you. I'll now hand over to Eleanor.
Thanks, Joanne. So just going to finish off with some forthcoming events. Now, this is normally quite a busy slide, but at the moment, for obvious reasons, it's not so busy because it's very challenging to actually plan any major events. The next one coming up is actually an exhibition in Dubai called ddyddiad. What I can, although I've put there to be confirmed, the event is going ahead, but I can tell you that as from today, we have decided that we will not have a UK stand at the event, just given the restrictions that there currently are on travel and quarantine and testing and so on. But watch out for it next year. It is a very good event for introducing your product or service to the organisations there in Dubai, because the UN actually has a hub in Dubai, and that's why the event takes place there. Sorry, I've gone one slide ahead of myself. I'm going to try and go back. Not sure what's happening. Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to the events page, because there is actually an important event and one that will take place. It's the International Procurement Seminar. I'm sorry, oh gosh, there it is, excellent. UN International Procurement Seminar. It will be hosted by the UN in Copenhagen, 16th, 17th of June. However, it is almost certain that it will be a virtual event. I would highly recommend this event to all of you if you want to learn more about procurement. It has already been held there. Well, these seminars are held regularly, and Joanne did a tremendous job organising the last event in which the UK participated. So it gives you the opportunity as UK companies to listen to presentations from a wide variety of different members of the UN family. And where there is a relevant connection, you will also be able to book one-to-one meetings with procurement staff from the various organisations. So do watch out for it, 16th, 17th of June this year. And then the next two events on that list, we hope they will go ahead as live events: the International Disaster Response and ADEX in Brussels. But again, watch the websites to see if they actually do manage to go ahead. I think some gremlins have got into the presentation. I can't move the slides forward, but there we are. These are our contact details: New York, Copenhagen, Geneva and Rome, and we're all using the same email format, so you'll be able to contact us quite easily. The thoughts I would like to leave you with are, please remember that we as a team, Geneva, New York, Copenhagen, we do share information with each other. We have regular team meetings, and we will do everything we can to facilitate introductions between UK companies and procurement officers where it's relevant. We do have to manage expectations sometimes. Not everybody will be able to generate the in their product or service, but we will keep you informed. We will let you know as soon as we possibly can. And remember your favourite website, the UN Global Marketplace. Great place, great source of information, and even the statistical return. I never thought that I would say that statistics were interesting, but they are very, very interesting on that website. And we are here to help you. That is the main message. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So at this point, I think we will hand over for questions. Please feel free to put your hand up or put your questions into the chat bar if you have any. If not, then get in touch directly with us.
Great. So yeah, we'll just take a minute to see if we have any questions. Again, as Eleanor said, please feel free to raise your hand to ask anything to the team. If anything, I would just reiterate the last comment that Eleanor said around UN Global Marketplace, making sure you're registered. It is the first question you'll have during any UN meeting with the procurement officer, and likely the first question we'll have as well. So that we'll have for you, I should say. So always important. It takes about 5 minutes. Very simple to be registered at the basic level. Let me see. We have a question here. Okay. So I'll ask this to the wider group, and then whoever wants to pick it up, please feel free. What would be your top tip to SMEs looking to sell to the UN? I can answer it, but also, yeah, does anyone, Eleanor, would you like to jump in?
No, go ahead, Nathaniel. I'm sure you're going to say the same as me.
Yeah, okay, for sure. Well, yeah, feel free then to fill in the gaps if there's anything. So there's plenty of opportunities for SMEs. As I just mentioned, when you register for the global marketplace, your first step would be registering at the basic level. SMEs and businesses that have been in operation for less than 2 years can register only at the basic level, but that still offers you opportunities to win contracts up to, I think it's $50,000 US. I always say that, and then I never know if it changes year to year. So again, anyone else step in, but at least as of last year, it was $50,000 US, and it should still be the same. So that's a great way for SMEs to sort of come in, especially some of those maybe smaller consulting firms. There's plenty of contracts where you can do it as a service from the UK. You don't have to worry about the shipping logistics, you know, again, if you're looking in the services industry. And it's registering at UNGM so that you know when those contracts are available. I think a lot of it for companies of any size is just the visibility, knowing when contracts are there. So you can register for them, and again, reaching out to us so we can help guide you through the process. But do you have anything else to add in, Eleanor?
Yeah, something I would like to add. I think an important message is don't give up. If we've established that you have a product which is relevant and that there is a potential interest, sometimes you have to wait for the opportunity to actually come. What we didn't perhaps we didn't say is that the organizations, apart from UNICEF, do not hold lots and lots of stock. They buy products when and as they need them. So you would have to wait for for a requirement to come up for your product. So please don't give up if we've established there is a need. And secondly, don't be afraid to ask questions. I hear this from UN staff quite often. They say that companies will bid on the basis of what they think the request is, rather than asking for clarification. Now, if it's for a tender, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, and it will be for a restricted period of time. You must ask the question at that point, rather than spend time bidding on the assumption that you've understood when perhaps you haven't. And finally, you've asked for one top tip, and I'm giving a whole list here, but finally, be as flexible as you can. As I mentioned at the beginning, sometimes the UN will ask for things that might look a bit odd particularly in terms of packaging. I've heard this many, many times from companies. If you can be flexible, be flexible. If they are giving you advice and you can actually do what they're asking for, then go ahead and do it, because that can lead to business. So I think that's as much as I can add for today.
Thanks, Eleanor. And then one more thing that you kind of sparked my memory is you were saying it. Again, many companies will not win their first contract. So, but when you go through that process, and if you are not successful in winning, make sure to ask for feedback. the United Nations will provide, the procurement teams will provide very specific feedback as to why another company was selected over yours. So it might be around costings, it might be around bits of your like technical aspects, or even part of the, your actual bid that you wrote. And that feedback can be incredibly helpful in drafting your next bid for another contract. So definitely take advantage. A lot of companies don't seem to ask for it, but they will provide very, very helpful feedback to any companies that are interested. And I saw we have another question. Sorry, let me pull up the conversation real fast. All right. So we mentioned a trade mission before the end of the year. Would you be looking for any particular type of company to take part? If it goes ahead, yes, very good point. So we certainly are hoping it'll go ahead in a physical way, that you could actually come out to New York and meet face to face. Again, maybe just to dive in a bit more to what it actually ends up being. Usually is around a 2-day program, so there'll be plenty of presentations from relevant procurement officials. But the real value for you all, I mean, obviously the presentations are very helpful, but there'll be one-to-one meetings that'll take place, obviously, with all of those procurement officials over the course of those 2 days as well. So I think it's definitely a great opportunity to meet with a good number of the different agencies and to talk through your specs, even if they don't have any procurement opportunities at this, at that time. Sometimes telling them about what's technically possible, what's actually out in the world. Can help them with future contracts that they might or future bids that they might tender for in the future. This would be, we aren't looking for any particular companies, I should say. It would be companies that are well placed to potentially win business with those agencies. It does tend to be a competitive process. We can only take so many companies, just given the number of procurement officials that are available to host the meetings. And again, we want to keep it a small enough group that each of the attending companies gets, all of their fair share of one-to-one meetings. But I would say we can definitely have a conversation around if your company would be a good one for winning business with the UN, and if so, then I'm sure it would be a great company to participate. So yeah, we're hoping again towards the end of this calendar year, if possible. If we have to, then maybe early into 2022, but we definitely want to get back to doing some meetings in person. And if there's any more questions, we maybe have time for 1 or 2 more questions before we hit the top of the hour. So do feel free to ask any last minute ones if you have them. But also, if not, maybe just meant that we did such a fantastic job at answering all of your questions and concerns, which is always great. And again, you can always reach out to us following this presentation to send us, again, sort of one-pager with your capabilities, or to just talk about opportunities with the various agencies that we cover in our patches. If there is nothing more for anyone else, is there any last-minute comments maybe I should ask on my side from Joanne or Eleanor or Chica that you want to leave the group with before we head off?
Hi, it's Joanne here. I'm just wanting to say that if anyone's interested in participating in the UN International Procurement Seminar in June, then please contact me. I have the save the date flyer available I can send to you, and then put you on the list for the invitation when that's available. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Joanne. Well, then we may just be able to give you all 2 minutes back. With that in mind, I'd just like to say again, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much to the team at Welsh Government for facilitating this and for helping to bring out all of you today. Again, this is sort of the first bit of information on our side. Feel free to continue to reach out. We're happy to support. That's what we're here to do. So thanks, everyone.